95 96.1 The Rock. Join with us on the phone right now. It's Curt Menefee, the author of Losing Isn't Everything, this morning. How are you doing today?
All right, how are you?
Doing great. I got a copy of the new book. I'm very excited about it. I'm excited to read it. What what inspired you to write the book, to look into it, and to kind of break down all these good stories when it comes to the sports world?
Well, I think that we all know what happens to people who are part of monumental victories. And I mean victories that we talk about, 5 years, 10 years, decades later. The 86 World Series, the Patriots' perfect season, the Baltimore Colts losing the Super Bowl, Hank Aaron's home run. Those moments, we know what happens to people that are on the winning side of that, the positive side, because we hear from them year in and year out and on anniversaries, and they go into the halls of fame, and they get TV jobs, all that stuff. But I wonder what happened to those people that are on the losing side of it, because you hear from them immediately afterwards, and then it seems as though most of them disappear. And not only where are they now, but really how are they now? How are their lives been impacted for being known as the person who gave up that home run, or who fell during an Olympic race, or who got beat on a shot by Michael Jordan, and then those kinds of things. And how has it impacted your family life? Your career after that, outside of sports, because most of these people are in their 20s when this happens, and you've got another 20, 30, 40, 50 years to live. And then what else can we all learn from that person's failure on a big stage that we can apply to our own lives? Because we all have things that we have to overcome. Job loss, divorce, kids don't grow up like you expect them to. What is it that we can gain from their experience having gone through it in a very public way on the downside?
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said with the sports stuff, you definitely remember all the big plays that happened. The Super Bowl last year, of course, the Patriots' huge comeback.
Right.
But what about the Super Bowl where Russell Wilson threw the interception, or things like that? And and
that was one. Pete Carroll was very good about being a part of the book, because he was one of those guys, and I think the overriding thing I found at the end, it seemed as though those people that dealt with it immediately, whatever it is, having been the person responsible for giving up a play or part of a team that lost a game they shouldn't have, are the ones that seem to be able to move forward and progress sooner. Mm-hmm. Those that buried it and then didn't deal with it for years and decades had trouble. I mean, some have been through drug issues or divorces, or having to go to therapy and those kinds of things. And Pete talked about really knowing how to address something right away. And I think one of the things that happens with the Super Bowl is we forget it's the end of the season. So you lose in Week 10, you've got the next week to kind of get your message out to your players, and you talk about it. With the Super Bowl, he had to immediately address it, not only in the locker room, and then everybody dispersed for the next 6 months. But that's why he said he went on a TV blitz, and he went on the Today Show, and he went to other places, because he knew people would be hearing from their family and friends, players, back while they're at home. And so he wanted them to know that they believed in what they were doing. And that's another theme. The people that believe that they made the right choice, even if it didn't work out, are ones that are able to live with it. John Van de Velde, the golfer who blew the British Open in 1999, only needed a 6 on the final hole, got a 7, monumental loss. He talks about had he done what his caddy wanted to do and wanted him to do and blown up, he would never forgive himself. Because he made the shot attempts that he wanted to, it didn't work out. And so it's fine. Things don't work out all the time your way in sports. And I think a lot of the people dealt with that, and that's what Pete talks about, is that, look, in this situation during the season, we threw the ball. He said they did it the first half. He pointed out games early in the year where they did it as well, and it worked out in those situations. Nobody brought it up. It didn't work out in this one. We're sad. We wanted to win, but you can't go against what is your philosophy. And if it doesn't work out, then in the future, maybe you adjust it, maybe you change it. But in that moment, they made what they believed was the right decision, and therefore they have no regrets for it.
A big thing with, especially in the sports world, you have so many diehard fans, you have so many dedicated people to your team. A lot of times I think when something happens, and your team did lose, they missed that big shot, they missed that field goal, they didn't get that home run that they needed, they kind of attack the team and stuff, but they need to realize that there's people on that field. These athletes are people.
Yeah, and that's one of the things I wanted to try and bring out by telling the personal stories of all these people. And I think one of the things that also you learn is that those that seem to have support, whether it's Rodney Harrison, who was the defender on the David Tyree catch against his helmet, and that Super Bowl where the Giants ended the Patriots' perfect season. His family, he said he was in a depression for a couple of months, wouldn't get out of bed, not take his kids to school, didn't play golf, didn't do anything that he usually does in the off season. And his wife and mother basically had a come to Jesus meeting with him and said, "Hey, look, you did everything you could. Did you study? Did you prep? Did you do things the right way?" He needed those people. The University of Kentucky basketball players who were defending Christian Laettner on the infamous shot in the NCAA tournament talked about how when they went back that the community really embraced them because that was a team that was coming off NCAA probation. Most of the players had left and transferred. Rick Pitino was the new coach. And that support system of now their jerseys are in the rafters really helped them move forward and adjust. And I mentioned earlier, you look at a guy like Calvin Schiraldi who blew the 86 World Series Games 6 and 7 as the reliever out of the bullpen. For him, he said he spent the next 30 years watching people blame Bill Buckner, and he never really had anybody who supported him that he didn't talk to, and it was all his fault that he buried his head. So, he, to this day, is still having issues dealing with this. And members of the Colts team that lost the Super Bowl to the Jets are still having issues dealing with it because they said, there's no Baltimore Colts anymore. There's no big reunion. There's no fan group that we go back to and have an alumni appearance and those kinds of things. So it's really been an interesting psychological study in how people deal with grief.
Yeah, it is really interesting. And being from Wisconsin, in Wisconsin, where we go to sleep, we breathe, we dream about the Packers all the time. And people to this day still talk about that Fail Mary. And I know that ref that made the call had a tough time too. So it's always pretty funny to think about. But the new book, Losing Isn't Everything, it's out now. Where can they pick it up?
Wherever books are sold, as they like to say. So you can get it at your local stores. You can get it online. I did the audiobook, so if you want to hear me
awesome.
As you go to sleep, read your bedtime story, you can get it there as well.
I really look forward to reading it. I'm gonna dive into it this afternoon, actually, and I look forward to it. And I appreciate you taking the time today. Curt Menefee, the author of Losing Isn't Everything. Pick up that new book, some untold stories about the art of losing and the impact that it has. We appreciate you joining us today.
My pleasure. Stay warm.
Yeah, thanks.